My name is Angelina, and I am the naturalist here at Sequoia State Park. Today, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, bird nests. Seems niche, right? And it is. But birds are so fascinating. So you think of all avian species and how different they look, from penguins to ostriches and little yellow warblers and hummingbirds to giant bald eagles. Well, that vastness of appearance is replicated in the diversity of calls and migratory adventures, and then in eggs and nests. I worked with beach nesting birds for several years, and I found those egg patterns and different nests so interesting. So I want to talk to you today about some bird nests that we have here in Oklahoma. A lot of times when you think bird nest, you're probably thinking of passerines or songbirds. So birds that you're seeing in your yard, like bluebirds, cardinals, and robins. So we'll start talking about those. I have some nests here that are long ago abandoned. They don't have eggs in them. I didn't disturb nests in any way. And this one here was probably a robin. It has a lot of vegetation that's probably dried and peeled off by now, but then it also has mud. And it's this distinct nest shape and nest size. Here is another robin nest that doesn't have as much mud in it and has more of that vegetation still. And robins have distinct eggs as well. You've probably heard the term robin egg blue. That's no exaggeration. Those eggs are bright blue and obviously aren't relying on camouflage. Eastern bluebirds have similar looking eggs. They're a little smaller, and their nests are also similar to robins. So the most foolproof way to identify what species has laid a nest is by seeing the adult. But also you can tell by a variety of factors: how the nest is built, what it's constructed out of, where it's built, and then what the eggs look like. So we'll give you a peek inside this nest box here. And you can see there's a lot of moss and leaves, and then look at the eggs. Their size, their color, their pattern, how many there are, their shape. This nest has been here for several weeks, and there are other nests in the area that look very similar. It's a nesting habit of prothonotary warblers to actually build several nests in the same area. So you can see this one is really soft moss, but also there's some fur. There's a lot of deer fur in this nest. So they're using what's available in the ecosystem and creating this really nice, fluffy, but structurally sound nest in which to build. Birds such as orioles build some really interesting nests. If you've ever seen them, they're pendant nests. So this is the best example that I have of one, and they basically free hang from branches. And this one is especially interesting because it's made predominantly of fishing line. You can even see this was obviously active fishing line. Another reminder, should clean up your trash, but this bird has used it in its nest. Oftentimes we find nests with man-made materials in them. So this is another example of a nest made predominantly of fishing line. It has the clear and it has red and blue as well. It also has this plasticky cellophane material that you find in Easter egg baskets. It has some twine. It has all different kinds of plastics. It does also have some natural material. There's some cotton on the inside, and it looks like bits of cigarettes. And then it does have leaves and these acorns. This is another reminder to pick up trash. Hopefully nothing happened to these chicks, but you can see how this strong fishing line could potentially wrap around their little legs and prevent them from leaving the nest, or around their necks. Other times you see really little nests. When you think little nest, you think little bird. Here's an example of this tiny little nest, and I can't say for sure, but this might be a warbler nest. We had a really interesting warbler nest on one of our trails, right by the trail, and it was about 2 feet off the ground. Little nest, little bird, little eggs. Another little bird that you might think of is a hummingbird, and they do build little nests. Their nests are also interesting because of the materials that they use. Blue-gray gnatcatchers build similar nests, but here is an example of a hummingbird nest. So you can see its relative size, and then also that it is made out of lichens and spider webs. So it is beautiful, and you can see the spider webs here holding it in to the crutch in this tree. So these unique materials are not only beautiful, but they're useful. So this tiny nest has tiny eggs the size of black beans or jelly beans laid in it by hummingbirds, and then the nest can expand as the chicks grow. It's not as rigid and structurally sound as some other nests, but those are properties that are advantageous for the birds. Little bird, little nest. Big bird, big nest. The biggest nest that has been recorded is that of a bald eagle. Bald eagles have up to an 8-foot wingspan. So think of a bird that big is going to need a nest that's equally big. So let me get my bald eagle. Just kidding, I don't have a bald eagle nest here. They can be up to 10 feet wide, 20 feet tall, and weigh 2 tons. Also, it's illegal to possess them. Even if they're unoccupied, you can't possess a bald eagle nest or any part of a bald eagle. Bald eagle nests are so huge, think of a Volkswagen Beetle up in a tree. So they're gonna need a big tree to nest in. It can take several months for them to build this nest, but they have high nest site fidelity, meaning they have faithfulness to that same nest site year after year. And bald eagles will build a nest and build onto that nest in subsequent years. If that tree is hit by a storm or something happens to the nest or surrounding area, they will build a new one. But for the most part, they mate for life and return to the same nest year after year. In the lower 48 states, bald eagles always nest about 2/3 the way up in trees with a lot of leaf cover, except this one. Ospreys also build platform-type nests, and both ospreys and bald eagles build close to water, but bald eagles are a lot bigger. The birds that we have talked about are what we think of as typical. They build a nest out of twigs and leaves up in a tree. Their chicks hatch and they're ugly and their eyes are closed and they don't have any feathers. These are what we call altricial chicks. So they rely on their parents for a period of time from when they hatch to when they fledge or leave the nest. So with some of the little songbirds that we've talked about, it could be 12 days. For bigger birds like the bald eagle and some owls, it could be 98 days till those chicks leave the nest. Birds like owls typically build their nests in cavities, so in a hollowed out tree or some other place that they find, and they maybe build kind of half a nest. Some birds, they don't even build a nest and they lay their eggs. Woodpeckers also use cavities. So if it's in a tree or a cactus, it's called a cavity. Burrowing owls, they build their nests underground, so they're called burrows. The red-cockaded woodpeckers are really interesting nesters. It's kind of a family affair. So they'll have generations past that aren't old enough maybe to establish their own nests, continue to help building that cavity in specific species of trees. And they prefer living trees that still have sap coming out of them. It helps deter predators like black rat snakes. And they like them to face a certain way. There are a lot of really interesting little details that scientists are learning more and more about why they choose to build their nests where they do. Okay, now let's talk about the weirdos. Every group of organisms has them, right? So birds are strange. And the most promiscuous are ducks. Ducks have all kinds of crazy hybrids going on, but they're also weird in their nesting. So wood ducks are a good example. They just egg dump, which literally means they dump their eggs places. Sometimes the female might not have a good nest built. She might be young. There might have been a flood or something destroyed a nest. And she's just going around and laying her eggs in other people's baskets, essentially. And what this does is it gives her a chance of spreading her genes through offspring, not a great chance. This is intraspecific brood parasitism. So it's parasitism, they're laying an egg in someone else's nest, and it's intraspecific because it's their own species. So they're laying wood duck eggs in other wood duck boxes. Sometimes they just lay 1,000,000 eggs, and the likelihood of all of these eggs hatching is very low. Another kind of parasitism is obligate parasitism. This is like the brown-headed cowbird. Cowbirds just don't build a nest. They can't be bothered. Why build a nest when everyone else has already built nests? So they'll go into a different species nest box and lay their own egg in there. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. Sometimes all the eggs will hatch and that brown-headed cowbird chick will be bigger than the rest. They're weirdos. Weirdos. Another kind of weird group are birds that lay their eggs on cliffs. An example of this are black vultures. So it's rocky, there's cliffs, usually wind. They just lay their eggs on rocks. A lot of times these eggs are specially adapted too, though. If you had a round egg, like an eagle owl, which is almost perfectly spherical, that would roll off the edge. So these eggs are more pointy, so that when they roll, they spin and don't ever roll off the cliff. So think about that. Think about egg shape. Chicken eggs and a lot of songbirds have that really distinct, what we would call ovoid or egg-shaped. But then there are perfectly round eggs, and there are eggs that have different amount of symmetry or asymmetry, different amounts of ellipticity. Eggs are cool. Last, and definitely not least, the moment you've all been waiting for. Beach nesting birds. So we've talked about some birds that just don't really care and do whatever with their eggs. And you might think that's what's happening with these species, but it's not. They've adapted their nest building, egg laying habits for the environment that they're in. Beach nesting birds on the beach. There are not a lot of big trees on the beach. Can't build their nests in a tree. Not a lot of vegetation at all other than beach grass in a lot of areas. They just build their nests directly on the ground. These are called scrapes. They literally scrape in the sand, and different species have different quirks, but some of them decorate the nest, so they might line it with seashells and nice looking rocks and pebbles, and they can be so intricate and beautiful. Some of them are colony nesters, a lot of beach nesting birds are. Some are semi-colonial nesters, somewhere in the middle. But a lot of these chicks are not altricial, they're precocial. Precocial means that they're up and running within hours of hatching. So they have some level of feathers, their eyes are open, and they're out eating, hunting for themselves. And you don't have to be either altricial or precocial. There's a whole range in between. Somewhere in there, you could be eyes open with feathers, but still come back to the nest and rely on your parents a lot, like American oyster catchers. And then there are piping plovers, which are out digging for worms literally within hours of hatching. When they hatch, they're wet and gooey from all that amniotic fluid in the egg with them. Then they dry off and they're little fluff balls running out on the ocean. They are the cutest, and I am definitely not biased. Beach nesting birds are so cool. They're not high up in trees to protect them from predators, and a lot of times they're little birds on the beach, so they rely heavily on camouflage. Many shorebirds, such as killdeer, oftentimes lay 4 eggs. Their pointy eggs point inward so they fit together nicely so that there's even incubation. Also, the pointiness allows for more oxygen exchange. Because these chicks hatch and are ready to go, they have to develop well inside the egg. Okay, so not all of these birds exactly occur in Oklahoma, but I had to sneak them in. They're so cute. We do have killdeer, and they'll nest even in pastures. We also have the endangered interior least tern, which nests on our sandy rivers. What can you do to help nesting birds at home? A big thing is keeping your cat indoors. These are a huge predator to nesting birds. Another thing is people want to leave out supplies for nesting birds, which is a great idea. But you want to think about natural fibers like cotton yarn and also hair, so human hair or pet hair. You can put this in onion bags if you want, so it's easily accessible for the birds but doesn't blow away. You can put up nest boxes at your home, and also you can slow back on trimming your shrubs and bushes to allow them a place to have a successful nest. Most of all, it's fun to enjoy them, but make sure that your interaction isn't disturbing the birds too much. Hopefully you have some birds nesting at home, and feel free to share your pictures with us. We'd love to see them. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments.